So one of the other things I really like about my system is the expense summary. All right, and basically what I do here is, as I've entered purchases and I've entered returns as well into the system, I have it automatically calculate an expense summary, so I can see what I actually spent each month and what I was returned each month and how I net out for each month on these expenses, right? So basically you have here for the monthly breakdown, each month by month, the total purchases, the total returns, and then the net expenses. I put inventory. I'm going to take the word inventory out because it's not specifically inventory. It could be other things too if you add other types of purchases in here, but basically net expenses, right? So right now, so far I've only done July. So you're going to see total purchases for July for now, the total returns, and you're going to see the net expenses, which is just purchases minus the returns, gain or the loss, right? And again, that came from here, the purchase 324.13, and the returns where I netted out $50, and that's where you get this. There's also going to be a quarterly summary. So for each quarter, you're going to get the total purchases in that quarter, the total returns, the totals, right? These are 0 right now, but once you fill in the data, of course, they're going to fill in, okay? And that will be, now, the thing is, this specifies month, but not year. So keep that in mind, that if you start going into another year, right, then it might get conflicted because you're going to have 2 different years of January. So that's not going to work. So what I suggest in order to really keep this working is that every year you should use a different copy of this system. So like this should be your copy for 2021. It's already July, so you're not going to be able to use this part. You're not going to, I mean, this is in the past, unless you go back and enter that data in here, your past purchases data, which you could do. But otherwise, you need to just move forward. And then next year, after December, I would suggest you go to File, save a new copy, or go back to my original blank copy or whatever, and you make a copy for 2022 so that you start all over again with January, February, March, so on and so forth, right? And that's how that how this will work. So you should have a separate copy. I have a separate copy of this for each year that I've been doing this, right? Okay, so custom date range is another option where if you don't want to look at it like this, you can actually pick a date range and it's going to give you the same information, the purchases, the total, the returns, and the net expenditures, right? Now this, I think these are actually the same. I'm not sure why this is, okay, so this, yeah, doesn't need to be here actually anymore. That was something else that I used to have, and I'm going to just delete this and kind of shift it up for you. All right, and this is just simply going to be the purchases minus the returns. So you'll have that. All of this is done for you. Okay, I was just fixing it. So now you're going to have the custom date range, from date, and to date. Okay, so you're going to put the date, let's say July 1st to July 9th. Let's say you did that. From date to date, and you're going to see 0 because there's nothing before that. But then if you change to date to July 10th, then you're going to see the stuff that I put in today, right? Now you don't see the returns. You might say, well, where's the returns? But remember, for the returns, I put the refund date as July 31st. I didn't put it as July 10th, right? So even though this return is processed on the 10th, meaning I went online and I did the return on the 10th, I don't expect to get the money back until the 31st. So this is not going to show up until the 31st. Okay, so if I change this to the 31st, then I'm going to see it, right? The $50. Okay, it's going to show up as the return amount. So that's basically how the expense summary works. Okay, you can do any 2 dates here and it's going to work. It doesn't have to even be the same month. It could be June 15th, right? Now I don't have any data yet for June in this demo copy. In my real copy, of course, my own purchases, of course, I have all this stuff, so it works, okay? But you have to have the data, of course. So once you have the data in here, it's going to go and it's going to look for that date range, which is programmed into this formula with the date looking between those two dates. So it includes these dates and everything in between the dates. Okay, that's how it works. The from date and the to date. So from this date, including this date, and also including up to and including this date. Now, once you have your expense summary, this is kind of like almost like you could almost call it a subsection of your expense summary, which is a charge accounts. And they'll probably do more with this in the future, but right now, really, all this is for is that if you have your charge account, like the Chase account that I use for purchases here, right? It's not a real account. It's just an imaginary account, Chase 1234. Well, it's going to tell me how many of the total of purchases I did or charges I did to that account. Okay, and so that's going to be the same thing, 324, and the total refunds is going to be 60. That's refunds from the supplier, but then remember there were the total costs of the $10 cost of the return, if you saw that in that video, and then you have the net charges of $274.13. That's the net amount that you have charged when you consider the purchases and the refunds and everything to that card. So you would know that that's what you need to pay on that card coming from your inventory purchases or your purchases, right? So I think this is going to be really useful if you're using, especially if you have a card that has other purchases going on it. This way you can separate and see exactly how much of your purchases are your inventory purchases are coming from this account, right? And of course, again, as you do more purchases, if you're using different cards in your purchases and you're going to be putting those different accounts in here, then you're going to see other things showing up. Other accounts are going to be, well, you have to add them in here, and then you're going to see the totals for those accounts. Okay, so as you add more accounts, let me actually just add one just so you can see what I'm talking about. So let's say I did another Chase 2345, and I'm just going to put a charge in here, like $100, and you're going to see here, then I'm going to add Chase 2345. Alright, and we have purchases, final charge of $100, and total purchase should be final charge of the account, purchases account charged, but the date, oh, I didn't put the date. Okay, so we see the date turns out to be very important. You have to put the date. It seems like it's not going to, because it's looking for all of that information, right? Because you're allowing a date range. Remember, you have a date range up here. Okay, so you have to put a date on the purchase. There has to be a date. So date is actually necessary. Otherwise, this part's not going to calculate. So date range is from July 1st to July 31st, and that's it. You see the purchases of Chase 2345, which came from, again, this one I just added here of $100 final charge, okay, on that account. Alright, so this will really help you keep track of how much you're charging to your different accounts. And that is pretty much the whole system. Okay, I had again, just to give just a little recap, there was the items purchased section where you individually itemize your purchases. The purchases section where you actually just put the full purchase information, right, for each purchase, including the shipping, handling, just the overall costs of the purchase, right, not individual items, just the overall cost information. And then you have the returns. Every time you return something, how much you were refunded for that return, for that item. So that's item by item also. How much you were refunded, how much it costs for you to send back the item, return costs. And then it gets summarized in the expense summary, which is going to show everything that was charged, purchases and returns and expenses, month by month, quarter by quarter, or in a custom date range. And then for each account that you charge, you can add the accounts, and you're going to see how much you charged or got refunds and returns for on each account. So that is basically, that is it. That is this system. It is a purchases and inventory system, or inventory purchases system rather. and there's a link in the description if you would like to get a copy of the system. And I really would love to hear any kind of comments, suggestions, questions, or anything about the system. This is what I actually personally use to keep track of my own purchases for my Amazon business, and otherwise, because again, I have to mention, this is not just for Amazon. This is you can keep track of all your purchases here, inventory purchases, but there is the Amazon ASIN section, so that you know which Amazon ASIN it corresponds to if you're selling the product on Amazon. But if you're not selling the product on Amazon, you don't even need to put, you just won't put the ASIN, right? But you still have the cost calculation for every item that you purchase, and that's what you really want, right? So even if you're not selling it on Amazon, still use the system, just so that you can keep track of your purchases, you can keep track of shipping and things like that, right? And this is what I use, but there might be things that you encounter that I don't encounter, that you might think of, that you think can be added, and then I can update it and add more things to it, or I can create an extra section for something perhaps, and then maybe I could add it somehow. So just let me know. Get a system, get a copy of the system, try it out, see how it works. This is pretty much an unprotected open system because it's using tables, and so it is self-expanding. Every time you add something here, the formulas and everything copy down automatically. So this system grows automatically on its own, which means you can use it permanently, right? It's not like 1,000 rows or something like that. It continues to grow because it's a database table, and the formulas are mostly going to be open. There might be some sections that are going to be protected, where it's just so that you don't just go and like delete it by accident. But these table sections are going to be open, so just be careful not to delete a formula, all right, because it affects like the whole thing. So basically, you fill in the spaces where you can see that are fillable, and that's how you use the system overall. So anyway, I'm Mr. Mark. I hope you enjoy the system. This should be on my Excel for Amazon channel, so I'm going to say this is Mr. Mark, Excel for Amazon, and again, please contact me with any questions.